Welcome to Learning Unleashed, the I4PL Toronto Chapter's podcast. I'm Karen Smith, and today I'm meeting with Melissa Pound. Melissa is the current chair of the I4PL's Research Committee. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Melissa, can you start by sharing a little bit about yourself with our listeners?
Well, I suspect that like a lot of people who are in this industry, I kind of have a bit of a circuitous career path. Started out working in social services, actually, of all things. And then I say of all things because where I am now is working for an engineering company. And at the engineering company, I didn't even really start out there in the learning department. I actually started as a technical editor and doing some website work, trying to monetize a website. Really just have done so many things there. And now at this point, I'm working one full time for the learning and development department in that company, RDH Building Science, as a learning designer and program lead.
Fantastic. Yeah. So maybe tell our listeners more about what I4PL research team does and how they can enjoy that research.
So we've actually just gone through a visioning exercise over the last year to try and define, what our goal is and what we're trying to achieve as a committee. Our sort of motto that came out of that was curate, connect, and convene. So what we want to do is to be a group that can provide curated, evidence-based content to I4PL members and really to the larger learning and development community, to connect researchers and practitioners in academic and corporate settings, and also to convene people, to get people together, different stakeholder groups to share ideas and experiences, to build skills, and basically to elevate the profession. The kind of key way that we're working on the curating piece is through the Knowledge Hub, which I think we'll talk about more as we go through because it's a kind of a key initiative that we've been working on. Connecting is partly about the back end, the sort of backstage work that is involved in trying to get more content onto the Knowledge Hub. And then convening is, can happen in a bunch of different ways.
How is the information published? How does somebody access?
Yeah, well, so the Knowledge Hub is our key place to disseminate information. It's a little bit just getting going now. So if you go there, you'll see a variety of things, but our hope is to really expand it now that it's got a home to live in. It's on the I4PL website. You can search for it. It's also in the drop-down menu. Really, it's searchable by keyword. It's searchable by author. So you can just go there and kind of explore. And that's where most of our content is going to be posted. Even if it was living somewhere else, it would have a link there. That's a good way to find out about things.
Sure, it's spent some time getting to know what's available to each person, and really, as you're going through your day-to-day in learning and performance, there's a whole library there of information. So people would benefit by getting to know that Knowledge Hub. What role, if you were describing it, what role does research play in learning and performance?
Well, so I won't speak for the committee here because we have a really diverse group. But just from my own perspective, I would say that there's a couple of really important pieces. So I think that at a most basic level, research of different kinds can inform practice. So if you want to be a better practitioner, I think that research can help you with that. You can have some information that can help you with decision making. Is this method actually effective or is it not? Some basis for making those choices. I think the secondary piece to that is then escalating that information to people who are decision makers, maybe around or above you, to again provide a basis or a justification for some of the choices that you're making and to get some support to rally the troops in terms of L&D initiatives that you want to put forward. So if you're trying to get buy-in basically from the C-suite or from other people, clients, if you're a freelancer, then research can be really helpful in that because not only does it make you a better practitioner, but it provides a way of demonstrating why one particular approach will work better than another to kind of shore up your case.
In learning and development, we're always creating a business case as we are putting together learning paths and plans. But we're also, kind of salespeople is what I'll often say. So you do need that knowledge, right? You have to have that base of knowledge to confidently speak about what you want to do and what we'll accomplish together as the end vision, what success looks like.
For sure. And I think that there's always research can look different depending on how you think about it. So you can think about academic research, which can inform practice and can inform business cases more broadly. And then there's also a sense of research, kind of corporate research that's done locally, that's done in your organization. maybe an evaluation program that's well thought out and that provides some substantive data, that's also a form of research. So I think that it's important to think about those things and how they're connected and the value that they bring to the profession.
Sure. And how they're connected, I think, is really important. I don't think everybody makes the connection. They live a little bit in silos. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. So,
Mhm.
in terms of writers and authors of these articles, can anyone author one, or like, is all of our members eligible to write an article and submit that for consideration?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would really encourage them to do so. I think that the Knowledge Hub has a lot of value for readers. It also has a very specific value for writers. Writing about something is a good way to learn about it. And then there's a practical benefit if you are certified. You can get certification credits for submitting articles. You can get feedback from our team to kind of develop your own ideas and to have that sense of collaboration with your peers. You can get recognized. It can be nice to have something published that you can then point people to just, have a way of sharing your ideas and your work and your thinking. So yeah, there's lots of benefits there, and I would really encourage people to do that.
Is there anything on the site that would give them some direction about how to start to write an article, like some, not necessarily a template, but a bit of, help, advice on how they might get started?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're dealing with learning people here. So yes, there's lots of guides and essentially job aid type stuff. Yes, if you go to the Knowledge Hub, there's a link on the Knowledge Hub to our submission page, and two things that you'll find there. So you'll find submission guidelines, which talk through, some practical things like, sort of what citation format we prefer and the sort of style guide type stuff, and also gives a little bit of a blurb about different types of research that we're interested in, academic versus corporate, what they have in common. There's some good information there, I think, to generate ideas. I would also encourage people to generate ideas from their work through their connections with I4PL, for example, in a community of practice or in kind of local chapter meetings. If you're having a discussion and everybody seems really engaged, that's probably a good thing, probably a topic that would work well for an article or a blog post. We do look for, we're very open. So we have things that are very visual. We have some infographics posted and are very happy to have that sort of thing. Videos, if people have videos or if they wanted to produce something like that. Podcasts like we're doing today. Really anything can be added to the Knowledge Hub, and we're happy to consider those things. We also have for the written word, we have a bit of a distinction between blog posts, which are short and can be written a bit more informally, and then longer articles, which we've just recently developed a template for. So there's going to be a sort of a series that have a similar format. You can kind of scroll through and find them, that are kind of like white papers, a little bit longer, a little bit more in depth, maybe more citations to external research, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of different options depending on your time commitment, and kind of your interest in exploring different media.
Great opportunity for our members to get published. We're not all perfect. What if someone submits something and it's not up to par? It's something that you might decline, and how would the person learn from that? What would that experience be?
Well, so if it was, I guess it sort of depends on what the reason was for declining it. So one of the things that we might decline is something that comes across as straight out advertising. We want this to be substantive content that's valuable to our members and to the larger community. So if somebody's submitting something that's just basically a pitch for their services, then we would just give
Or
that feedback that this needs to be adjusted so that you're taking the learning that you've had from your experience and putting it in a more generic context. If it's a case of maybe somebody submitted something that doesn't quite fit the format that they're using, so maybe they've submitted something as a blog post, but it's just really long, then we might ask them to resubmit as a formal article and give them a template to help them do that. But really the goal is to have some communication. So anytime we get a submission, we want to provide some feedback, and always there's the opportunity to resubmit.
it sounds like it would be a good experience regardless.
I would hope so. That's the goal.
Yes, yes, and an important one. And as learning professionals, we know that that's part of the journey, right? So let me think about the innovation. Like, what's sort of innovative in research today that's available to our members?
Well, so as I say, we're just sort of getting started with the Knowledge Hub. So I expect that it will expand quite a bit over the next year or so. But I can say, based on what we have posted so far, that some of the innovation themes that I could pull out would be emerging technology. So things like AI, or like, I think we have an article on there about virtual environments. So those emerging technology
Very
issues.
relevant today, for
Mhm.
sure.
And then, of course, change in the L&D environment, changes related to the pandemic. That's been obviously a big thing the last year or so. And I think
Yes.
another big one is EDI, that there's just a lot of thinking and innovative, I would say, maybe theorizing and trying to kind of work those issues through, and that's starting to show up in the content that we have.
So are articles published weekly, monthly?
Yeah, so there's a sort of a minimum frequency because all of the members of the committee are committed to themselves producing something for the Knowledge Hub at least once a year. So we have, I think, about 9 members now. And so there is given the number of members and the volunteerism involved there, we would expect to have something at least once a month, roughly. But then again, as we expand and continue to get more and more submissions, then I would expect we'll just really post things as soon as they're ready, and would hope to have things up, at a good pace.
Sure, even monthly. And as you mentioned, as the other committees or communities of practice, for example, get established, I'm sure they'll have lots of content to feed into to those different types of media.
Hmm. Yeah, well, and we also are trying to reach out beyond the I4PL community too. So I think we have a wonderful community and want to really tap into that richness and get people involved. But we also have a working group within our committee that over time, in the long term, the goal is to also reach out to the academic community that may not be directly connected to I4PL, and to solicit involvement and submissions from them as well. So there is a sort of a long-term plan of building up the database of knowledge in different ways.
And is it beyond the borders of Canada? So are you looking for content that may come from other countries?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't think that would necessarily be part, at least from the information that I've had from that working group so far. I don't think that that's part of their initial rollout plan. But I don't think that we would turn something down that we got from someone who lived in another country, as long as the information was relevant to Canada. Because I mean, we are a Canadian organization, and
Absolutely.
so you want to make sure that it's relevant to our members. But there certainly is tons of stuff out there that is relevant, and so yeah, there's no reason to turn that away.
Sure. In terms of promotion, like how would I find out that a new article is published? Like how would I know, oh, there might be something new there and it's time to take another look at the Knowledge Hub?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think if there's a follow function on there. I could go and check. But we are also going to start putting in blurbs into the newsletter. So that maybe is a good place to start. If you're reading the I4PL newsletter that comes out, then, roughly once a month, we'll be highlighting what's new in the Knowledge Hub. And so that's a kind of a good time to peek in and see if there's something that you're interested in reading.
So you said there's 9 members on your, that sounds like a small and mighty team. There's 9 members on your team. Are you looking for additional volunteers? Can someone, opt to do that, join your team?
Yeah, oh, don't quote me on the numbers. I should actually count them up. But we have, yes, we do have a small and mighty team. And yes, we are happy to have more people involved. And so I think there's a number of ways that people can do that. So they can join the committee. And there is the first step to that would be to go to the volunteer form that exists on, I think it's under the member tab on the I4PL website. And there's just a form there you can fill out, and it will be shunted to us if you identify that that's where you would like to volunteer. So that's the first step if you want to become, kind of involved in a more committed, ongoing way. Also, of course, as I say, another way to get involved is to just submit things, to produce knowledge that can be shared through the Knowledge Hub. And then there might also be connections, that if there are other committees and other groups working within I4PL that are listening to this and thinking, hey, there's a good maybe point of contact there where whatever we're working on could connect well with the research group, then that's another thing that, we'd be happy to hear about. And people can contact me, or they can contact us through, well, you could use the submission form that will go to our general email that we have for the for the research group specifically, or you can contact the executive or the office, and they'll just, again, direct messages to us.
So many ways to connect. So excited that you're growing that knowledge hub. And that's just another benefit to an I4PL membership.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think complements other things like the webinar series that we've had and, some of our live events, conference and so on. And so, yeah. And again, we always have an interest in being involved in those things too. So, last year, I think that the research committee was involved in evaluating or vetting the poster submissions that we got for the conference. So there are always these different tie-ins.
Well, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I think that everybody will benefit from listening to the information that you imparted and get excited about research, reading it and benefiting from it and leveraging it within their jobs, and also the opportunity to write and become an author themselves.
Oh, I hope so. I think it's very worth getting excited about.
Yes, I think so too. So thank you so much for your time today.
That concludes our episode for today. Stay tuned for more Learning Unleashed in the GTA podcast from your Toronto chapter social media committee. Wishing you the very best.